Like the research talks about measurable physical pain
In
when
response to social rejection.
it could just be a slight comment or
Yeah.
an inability to be curious about our decisions and instead just
Yeah.
judge and bring your own fear and
Yeah.
concepts on it. And look, that's been challenging for us too, because we've had to own the way we've shown up in relationships too. But during that process, it felt really painful.
It's the small things of, oh, I just got missed in that moment.
Yeah.
Just the small, it could be offhand comments, just jokes, silliness that just didn't land. And there is a pain there.
What if thriving wasn't about getting life perfect?
But learning to find peace and purpose right in the mess.
I'm Kelsey.
And I'm Tom, and we walked away from the version of life that looked right to build one that feels alive.
We'll talk about the beauty and the struggle, from parenting and marriage to faith, well-being and travel.
This is The Whole of Us.
Welcome back.
Welcome back. We found ourselves a new couch to sit on.
Yeah, this is actually the take 5 of this episode. It has felt like a challenging episode to record. We'll get into that later. But we wanted to just start by saying thank you for being here. We're glad you're here.
If you haven't found us on YouTube yet, jump on over, subscribe, share. It's delightful having these conversations. And part of our big thing of doing life together has been to do life in community. And we love finding people who are on these journeys, whether that's at the start, at the end, in the middle, somewhere where we find ourselves. It's beautiful.
Well, and it's funny you talk about community. Belonging is such a really interesting thing. So we have talked about the leap of taking the leap to travel the world.
And the why of what put us in that position.
But we haven't really talked about what that actually looked like.
It was a really fascinating one, as I was moving out of this season of burnout and kind of
out of it or into it?
Into it. That's probably a better way to put it. Yeah, into it and reframing what the world looked like, because my capacity was so severely limited.
Yeah.
And so we were, in our house in this beautiful little spot, and I just found the mounting pressure to be going back to what I was doing overwhelming. Anxiety was spiraling out of control. And I'd always had this idea, having grown up overseas, that it would be beautiful to take our girls and do seasons for a while. I think where we live is summer and then second summer, which honestly doesn't get a lot better. But the beauty of autumn and spring and winter and just being able to show them more of the world was something that had been long on my heart. But we didn't know how to do that.
I think you just had flight energy.
Yeah. And there was that. I just wanted to run away.
In our brains, I guess at the time, we were like, let's go on a holiday overseas, try something new, get some more perspective, and then come back. But I think initially that conversation was looking at it for short term. And then as it started to evolve, we realized we sort of needed to make a step that we couldn't easily step back from.
But even before then, I think your mindset around it was like, why the heck would we go traveling when my husband is falling apart, when we need community around us, when
I love
our
where
life
we live.
was beautiful.
I love our community. I like my bed. I'm very comfortable. I also, it was like a post-COVID world. All of the, I don't know, the blog articles and Instagram pictures were all outdated at this point.
Yeah.
The world was just opening back up, and on the news, it was really scary what was happening around the world. So the concept of not only walking into a literal unknown and taking you, who was just mentally really not in a good headspace, and I was sort of right there with you. It was a really scary time of life, I guess. Everything felt like it was blowing up and everything was crumbling underneath us, and I didn't know what to do next. And I remember sitting with God journaling about it. You had talked about it a few times, like, why don't we go travel? I just couldn't even imagine what that would look like. Do we take backpacks? Like, do we just move to France? Whatever. I couldn't imagine what that would, where do you start?
Yeah.
And it was really interesting because you had just kept saying it and I just kept shelving it. And then I sat with God one morning with my journal, and I thought, I'm going to take this thing off the shelf to look at it. Finally, just Tom keeps talking about it. What is God actually saying about it? And I remember saying to God, like, I don't know the world. It looks too scary. And he said to me very clearly, I know it and I love it. And I felt immediate peace and thought, we're going to do this. And that was as simple as it was. We didn't know the logistics. We didn't know how long we would go for. We didn't know how to school the kids. They were in school at the time. So to pull them out, we were going to have to world school. What would we do with our house? I think the best first decision we made was decide to rent the house out.
Yeah. And that happened somewhat miraculously down at the park one day. Met a friend and they went, we need a house for a year. And it just went, well, we need tenants for a year.
Then we couldn't get out of that. So we had to go somewhere for a year. So why not travel? We knew the first flight where we would go. But from the moment we decided to rent the house, and the time from renting the house to leaving was about 3 months. So it was fairly quick.
It was.
We have written an ebook on everything, all the decisions we made and how we decided
that process
things.
And flow.
Because it is not as easy as just drop everything and leave, especially if you've got kids. But even without kids, there's even electricity bills and what you do with your car and what do you do with your stuff and how do you then get visas apart. Just copious amounts of information that we learnt along the way. So
we put all that into an ebook, which you can grab off our website.
Even how to save money on accommodation. We did a lot of house sitting around the world, and that was incredible.
There's so many cool hacks that you can jump into.
It doesn't matter what your budget is. You can do it. Yes, you might not stay in as like fancy places, or you would have to, I don't know,
pick and choose the countries that you go to. If you can start to reframe the way you look at things, then suddenly the whole world opens up. Literally the whole world.
Yeah, absolutely.
But that reframing,
that's a whole different conversation.
That reframing was something that we started to have to do with our life and with our community.
Yes.
And as we were kind of stepping out of this and going, like, there was a peace on leaving, but there was also this deep discomfort and what on earth are we doing?
Sounds so amazing.
All of the
Let's
questions.
go travel the world. But I'm telling you, I
The
liked the life we had as well. And there is no grass is greener, because what happens when you leave to travel is safety goes. Your community, your home, the language, the cultural safety, everything shifted. And that concept is a really fascinating one to talk about. So we're talking about belonging today, and particularly talking about what it looks like when you take a leap. How do you still show up in community? Because we know that community is vital for our health and well-being.
Yep.
The studies on loneliness, particularly in this day and age, are staggering.
Profound. It increases your mortality by like 30%, which is nuts.
It's crazy. And so we basically decided to step away from community and travel, just the four of us, for 2 years with not much of a community.
Yeah.
And the conversations we had with people when we started living life a very different way was really shocking. And process of grieving that too.
Yeah.
Of the loss of relationships and family. So before we decided to travel the world, we've obviously talked about selling the business, but there was a season where we were starting to question a lot of just how we were living life and what we wanted from life. When you start talking like that in the communities that we find ourselves in, you naturally come across critics.
Yeah. And a wealth of opinions that people, for lack of a better phrase, want to share. And it's such a natural thing for us to do as humans, to create safety through connection over similarities. We want to do life with people that are similar to us, and there's a beauty in that, and there is more than enough people in the world to find people that are similar to us.
Yeah.
The challenge comes when you start to shift that similarity a little bit, and there's pushback. And it's a really interesting one when you look at it from what's happening internally in both yourself as the one who's kind of shifting away and the ones who are in the community as well. And from both perspectives, there's this desire to stay within safety. Our natural inclination is to stay in community, because community is where there is safety.
You don't question the status quo, go along with it.
And the natural inclination of a community is to keep those in community. And so they don't want you to change because you're safe.
And I guess there's a lot of their own fears and own perspectives that gets put onto you. It was very hard to make decisions with the noise around us.
Yeah.
And part of the decision to travel was we knew that to heal, we needed to leave.
Yeah.
There was this overwhelming feeling that, I mean, we could have healed here, but I think it would have been a lot slower and harder to do.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
in some ways it was more difficult leaving home, but in other ways it was a lot easier because there wasn't the constant noise and people asking questions. It was really this insular experience of the four of us just digging in deep and
Yeah.
pressing into the healing together.
Well, there's a reality that when you're within a structure, you can't get perspective on it. It's like standing in a building and going, what does it look like on the outside? And you go, well, I don't know because I'm within it.
And you're reflecting everyone around you.
Exactly. And
Yeah.
so by moving ourselves out of the structures that we'd built our life upon, and they weren't bad, they just were, and being able to look back and go, that's interesting.
Mm.
And approaching it with a curiosity, not a judgment, to go, there are things here that I really like and things here that actually I don't like. And that could be
agree with, or
the way that structure is, that could be the way the community is, that could be the way I'm showing up in those communities and that structure, and go, maybe there's some things here that I want to shift and change.
And maybe a kindness us stepping away too was that people could relate to us differently when we got back. It would have been hard to have healed and changed and grown in the ways we needed to and wanted to when people were expecting us to continuously show up in a certain way.
Yeah.
That moving away from community, from church, from school, from work, from family, all of those beautiful things was a really incredible experience for us to really dig deep and think, what do we want from life aside from everybody else? And look, a lot of the values are still the same as our community. We have slipped back into that because we're obviously home now, but it is with, I think, a nuanced approach.
Yeah.
I feel it's not that we were looking for people to agree with us. Naturally, in community, we have similar values, but it's not like we couldn't have relationship or can't have relationship because we don't agree with them. The surprise consequence of the decision as well of leaving was the grief that came from stepping outside of our community and not belonging anymore. And the research talks about measurable physical pain
in response to social rejection.
Yeah. And I don't think we felt it, yes, definitely at times of rejection and ostracization, but in general, it could just be a slight comment or an inability to be curious about our decisions and instead just judge and bring your own fear and concepts on it. And look, that's been challenging for us too, because we've had to own the way we've shown up in relationships too. But during that process, it felt really painful.
Yeah. Yeah. And I so agree with you. Like it's not the big rejection things that feel painful. It's the small things of, I just got missed in that moment.
Yeah.
Just the small, and it could be offhand comments, just jokes, silliness that just didn't land. And there is a pain there. And so,
especially because we were very tender and vulnerable at that point too. It was very easy to be offended at a lot of things.
And so one of the things that we've kind of discovered is that, like, to really find belonging, you have to risk not having it for a season.
Yeah.
And it was one of the most challenging things for us who are very relationally driven. Like, and again, I would say that of all humans, that we are relational beings, to risk not having belonging is it's a crushing emotion in many senses, and really confronts the drivers that we have within us. And so, like, this shift from, like, looking at effectively what external belonging looks like to, okay, if that's removed, what do I have left?
Yes.
I've got to sink into an internal sense of safety, an internal sense of, actually, like, am I worth belonging to myself? Am I worthy of even just love?
Yeah.
And that simple question became something that drove us deeper into our own healing journeys. And I think even as, and we'll talk about this in other podcasts, but like, our marriage has gone through such a dynamic shift as we've gone on our own journeys and more deeply understood individually, I'm worthy of love.
I love this conversation because I think traveling and the lonely season that was, and hear our heart, like, this was an incredible opportunity, a crazy privilege, but it made us realize how important community actually is. And that so much of the joy in life is relationship based. And so our intention of coming home was really to pursue that more.
Yeah.
because you can be in the most incredible places in the world. And if there's no one to share it with, it can be so lonely. But I do think that, like what you're talking about, is changing from this external approval or external validation, external
sense of security and
yes, to an
safety.
internal. And I think traveling was such an incredible experience because we didn't have other people to share it with. We could share it with each other, but there was also this self-appreciation
Yeah.
that I could sink into moments. Say we were in, I don't know, Vietnam and on a boat in the middle of the ocean, and there's no, like, they don't have a phone or something. There's no one to share it with other than the four of us. And I could experience that, and I could sink into what that felt like with the sun on us and the moving through the water and your hair's out the side and just finding joy just for joy's sake. So, and the benefit of that is that it has created an ability for us to come back and not abandon ourselves to fit in again, to still be within ourselves and to give to community and to access into community from a really authentic and, like, emotionally congruent place.
Yeah. And it's interesting, like that authenticity, when we're showing up with that, it removes the certainty that we're going to get in relationships.
Yeah.
Because when we're showing up in the normal way, we're pretty certain of how people are going to respond.
Well, we're at least preparing and tweaking ourselves to
Yeah, to
be
fit
liked
in.
and approved and
Yeah.
fit in
But-
general, yes.
But when we start showing up with an authentic, congruent sense of self, that certainty is not guaranteed because people are going to reflect differently on that. But because there's a congruency there, so we should explain congruency. It's a felt sense of knowing, believing, and being the same. So I am who I am, and what I say is the same as who I am. So congruency is really this deep sense of knowing who you are, your beliefs, the structural underpinnings of what make your personality up, and then thinking and saying things in alignment with who you are.
Yes.
And so you're truly showing up as yourself.
And what that takes, though, is for you to know what you want.
Yeah.
So it takes really an unpacking of your story and understanding what things you do or say or think is not actually an authentic version of you. It might come from your past trauma or your
Yep.
childhood wounds
Yep.
or life.
Yep.
But it does take slowing down to look at those things to be able to then outward flow what's actually internally going on, not in
Totally.
a protective, either destructive or ability to cope.
And I'd take that a step further as well, going, it's not just that logical process of stepping through story and stepping through
Yes.
our understanding. It's actually embodying
It's
that.
a felt
So
experience.
It's leaning into, what is my body actually showing in this state right now? And like, am I showing up thinking that I'm really happy, but my heart rate's gone through the roof and I've got this nervous energy that's there? Or am I like actually really sad when in this really joyful moment? And logically we could go, oh, no, I'm fine. It's beautiful. Everything's good. But there's a sadness there. So,
And people can feel that. If you're
Yeah.
saying you're fine and your body language, or just there's an internal incongruency, there are studies that show that people pick that up.
yeah, the idea of this energetic calling card.
So studies show that when you're stepping away from that depth of belonging,
Yeah.
for a short period is a great thing for your well-being if it creates a
Deeper sense.
congruency and a deep sense of authenticity.
Yeah.
However, if you don't find that and you're just outside belonging, you're outside community and you're isolated, then obviously there is a huge detrimental
effect. And I think we noted the ease with which you could pendulum swing from being deeply ingrained in community to being lone rangers. And we were so aware that we didn't want to land there. So sitting in that in-between place where we'd left community and we were sitting in that place of more isolation socially, we were conscious we didn't want to stay there in this place where you can lose touch with what actually grounds you as people. And we didn't want to become so consumed with my truth and my rightness that I was unable to connect with anybody anymore.
I think we had to be careful, and we probably pinged, and from being, like you're saying, the Lone Ranger, let's cut everyone out, I can't deal with the noise and everyone's opinions and thoughts, to losing ourselves in community. And I think there is a natural back and forth to some degree.
Yeah.
I was aware that there were seasons overseas that we didn't talk to anybody for a very long time. But in general, and I think that's a dangerous place to live too, because you never, well, not only does it, I think, relationally stunt you, you lose the support that is necessary in life, the joy of being part of a community, but also you lose the accountability.
Yeah.
And we need to be able to have discussions
Yeah.
about what we believe in things. We were not looking for a community that believed exactly what we believed. We just wanted to be able to create clarity and the congruency within ourselves so we could show up authentically in relationship and know where we stood on things or what we believed about things. And of course, that's constantly evolving and changing and shifting. So that, but with the hope of showing up really authentically and creating boundaries that wasn't self-sacrificing.
Yeah.
Every time somebody needed us, we wouldn't lose ourselves whilst being in community.
Yeah. Yeah. Which is a precious thing to be able to hold the beauty of community and hold alignment to yourself and congruency to yourself. So it's not one or the other, but it's learning that as relational beings, we need to hold both together.
Yeah. And it taught us, I'm pinging a little bit, but it taught us, I think, in these big decisions, life decisions, that there was a necessary stepping away to get clarity, that it was really wise to have certain people who we were keeping accountable to and who were speaking into our life. We noticed the value of people who could listen and be curious and ask questions, as opposed to spilling all their fear and worries about the decisions we were making or the life we were living. The circle got really tiny. It needed to, because we didn't need all the input and everybody else's thoughts and feelings on things. And I think that's wise.
Yeah. Yeah.
But we did make sure that there were a couple of people. So around the world, we would Zoom into friends and a couple of people that we were just really honest with how we were going. We needed that. It was also naming the experience for what it was, that there was a grief in surrendering all of these things that had made us who we were. Because when you start to get a little introspective, I think it can either become really selfish or really freeing.
Yeah.
And that balance is also very tricky, which is why you need the accountability of community.
And we found that relationships that were built on safety rather than agreement they became the most precious things.
The agreement ones didn't last.
No.
Even if we agreed the same thing.
On one issue.
Even multiple issues, they were really difficult, because as we were processing through what we believed and how we wanted to live our life, those people found it really hard to hold the nuance.
Because the idea of even questioning these beliefs, despite the fact that we may land exactly in the same place, just questioning it in and of itself created so much unsafety.
And in all these type of situations, I think, how have I done this as well?
Yeah.
Because it would be ridiculous to look at somebody else and be like, well, I've also had areas in my life where I've been very black and white about things, and I've had to grow and change in that, and will continuously need to grow and change. The other thing that was really interesting that we found was that all it took was one person to stand beside us when all of the noise was saying, don't do this, or you're crazy, or whatever the mob or the common theme was. If there was one person who believed in you and could trust us for what we were doing, what we were hearing from God and what we were feeling, we just clung to that, and it made such a difference. And the research shows that it is a significant impact on following through with the thing that you want to do,
which is profound. And so I think that's where
you don't need a lot of friends. It could just be a couple.
It can just be a few. And like, again, that research is so clear that you can only have so many close friends.
That you go deep with, and that is...
Exactly. And it's picking and choosing those people, again, where there's safety, not necessarily agreement, but safety and wisdom.
And then the other part, I guess, was retraining our nervous systems to be okay within ourselves without the constant noise and
external
acceptance.
Safety. We've kind of explored meditative practices all around the world. There is this consistency across cultures that true wholeness comes from slowing down. From being present with what's happening internally in your body, in your mind, in your spirit, and going, I can just be with that. I don't need to change that. I don't need to judge that. I don't need to try and fix it. Or I don't need to understand it fully, but I can just be. And that being with has profoundly changed the way that we relate to ourselves as individuals, and the way
trying to fix it.
Exactly. But then it's had this incredible flow-on effect into the way that we relate with each other, both in our marriage, in the way that we parent, in the way that we're showing up with other people now. It's okay to just be. And it's probably one of the most precious things that we've settled into, and it takes a continual settling into, because
Oh,
there
yeah,
is
because
such
life
a
will
deep
ping you
propensity.
out.
Yeah.
Oh, and it's like, how boring if life was just this constant meditative place that you were just, peaceful and it's fun. Like excitement and anxiety look very similar. Like you get to process through it all.
Yeah. Yeah.
I think like we want to round out this episode talking about belonging and the encouragement, but I think it's just holding space for people going through life-changing decisions, making choices that maybe the greater group don't agree with. I think I would always encourage wise counsel, but I also know there are seasons that even the wise counsel has felt really hard to find.
Yeah. Or the previous wise counsel has actually spoken from fear, not from trust.
You don't want to just surround yourself with people who will agree with you, but there is a place to find one or two people who are really trustworthy, who can trust you in the process too and give good advice. That would be it. And then to maintain that community
Yeah.
even while you're walking through the next season, because we talk about the leap like it's this, pivotal moment, and it is, but then the walking out the consequences of that decision is harder than
Yeah.
the leap. Once you've made the decision, it's great and the
Yeah.
peace comes and it's all great, but the living it out and the
Yeah.
constantly evaluating the decisions, because your feelings will shift to, and that's why I think that's why clarity around when you make that leap and when you make that big decision is so necessary to sink in and really get an understanding of, is this a fear-based thing? Because I always think if it's fearful, there is curiosity that's required to get to the
Absolutely.
underneath thing. The fear will take you left and right. You got to get like discomfort. We're not talking about discomfort. Almost the entire 2 years was uncomfortable. Our life is still
Uncomfortable.
in just that we're figuring it out, and the process can be tricky.
Yeah.
We want to be challenged. We want to be living a life that has us on the edge of our seats, not in a dysregulation way, but
Totally.
in a brave, courageous way,
Yeah.
right? Doing this podcast is a little bit like that.
Yeah.
Like
And
hearing
that's
our
the thing,
inner
like it
thoughts.
doesn't take big leaps. It
No.
doesn't take making these huge decisions. It's just, how can I today take something that I previously held as gospel truth and just get curious about it and go, oh, is that actually what I think? Does that actually line up with who I am now? Because something that I believed 10 years ago that I'm still holding on to may actually have no relevance to how I'm
Yeah,
doing
well,
life right now.
as you're talking, I'm curious then about because we really do want foundational stuff. I think there needs to be things that we hold on to, but maybe I'm not talking about beliefs necessarily, like our Bible, but like our beliefs about God are unchangeable now. Like God is good. He is faithful. I'm talking about the way we approach life, maybe. I think we saw in a season that everything could be taken from you very quickly.
Yeah.
Your health, your finances, your home, your job. That's what made probably the leap into travel so easy, because I felt like we'd walked out of a season realizing that it is a little bit of an illusion. And so I want to be disillusioned. I
Yeah.
want to
Yeah.
be able to hold things so lightly and to know that it's not, yeah.
Well, and I mean, that statement, ignorance is bliss, is so true.
The reality is it doesn't have to be a massive leap. I think it's just getting curious about the decisions we make and why we make them.
Yeah.
I think it can be as simple as that. We like to go into autopilot and just go through our life. And there's really nothing wrong with that. Like, but
Habits.
I want more than that. I don't want to just do what I've done because I've always done it. And I think a little bit of where we were at was that. And we lent in a little bit more and then started to realize that so much of the way we were living our life was for the approval of others and for the applause that came from perfectionism or performance. And it was crushing us because it was all about how we could do it or how you could do it. And there was so much more to unpack, and there was a lot of freedom on the other side of curiosity and slowing down to look at the way we were living.
Yeah.
So I think, yes, we talk about this massive leap, and those are what we've already talked about, are the things I would tell someone if they were on this like life-changing cliff. But I think in our day-to-day life, there are moments that honestly, just a conversation with a friend the other day, and I'm thinking we don't agree on the same thing. And the stress, internal anxiety that we're going to disagree on something, and now I won't have her approval. And instead, I feel like these last few years has become such this internal congruence that, and a safety from within, that even if we agree differently, even if she got up and left because we had different viewpoints on something, that I would still be okay.
Yeah.
And that I could still love somebody out of that place. And I could still hold nuance from them. So it wasn't even a judgment that they don't agree with what I'm saying. There was an awareness that, I am evolving and I'm growing and I'm changing. What I believe now may change. I'm not talking about like biblical, godly truths, but I'm talking about world events or conversations. And even, I just think God loves it when we have the conversation
Yeah.
with him. Like,
Well, he's not scared of us questioning something. And we get so freaked out by a question on something and it challenging a belief. And when actually it's just a question. And I love that word curiosity because it implies almost a sense of joyfulness and fun to it.
having
Engage.
re-entered into bigger community, church and life. And it's really exhausting, but relationships are.
Having
because,
conversations with people is a thing. It's
like, are we the only ones out there? No, I don't think so, because I keep talking to people being like, isn't just having friends hard? Like, I walk away and wonder, oh my goodness, did I say too much or not enough? And yeah, I think I just want to be a little bit more holding life lightly. I think
Yep.
belonging is so important, but so is having a deep internal congruence and authenticity. And the way to really deep, powerful, beautiful relationships is through authenticity.
Well, it's showing up as your whole self, not just as like a filtered version that
There's wisdom in that, though. Like,
there can be,
certain
depending on the
people,
relationship. Yeah.
yes. But that we go deep when we are a little vulnerable and authentic.
Yeah.
And
we risk disagreeing and we risk like offending.
well, I just love that concept of, to belong, you have to risk not belonging for a season.
This conversation has been a challenge,
Eye-opening, a challenge.
but delightful. I think it's something
It just
that is
feels
so
messy
close.
because I don't want to say the wrong thing. And
Yeah.
and in one little episode, you can't possibly grab in all context. But I think it's a conversation worth starting. And we're just going to messily talk about it because I think community is so important.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it's so uncomfortable, this balance of vulnerability and authenticity and wanting deep relationships and wanting to be seen and knowing the cost of not having community and not feeling like you belong. It's a conversation that I want to have more of, but I hope if you're listening, you can just feel that we're in it with you.
It's okay if you feel some disconnect. Like, it's okay if at the moment you're feeling a little bit on the outer.
And maybe this episode just brings up more questions for you. Send them in. We'd love to think about them and talk about them. More conversation is always a good thing.
Yeah.
Especially around the subject of belonging and community and how we're showing up in in our lives.
I think the nicest quote I've heard on this recently was the idea that I don't stand on issues, I walk with people. And that's what we want to do. We want to keep walking with you as we have these conversations. We want to walk with our friends. We want to walk with each other. And we're not going to get hung up on the little differences.
Yeah. Or big differences.
Or big differences.
Yeah. Maybe we'd be a people who just love really well.
Yeah.
So anyway, episode 3.
Love you guys. Like, subscribe, share this out to all the people so we can all find a greater sense of belonging. We'll talk soon.
Bye.
Bye.